Okay.
Hello everyone, and thank you for joining us today for our webinar entitled Overhead Crane and Safety Training Audit for Managers, Supervisors, and Safety Professionals. Are your material handling operations safe? Is your team properly trained? Are your cranes and hoists compliant? This webinar will help ensure your hoist, crane, and rigging operations comply with the latest OSHA and industrial safety standards. We'll explain how to determine what training your team requires and give an overview of the types of inspections and audits that are required. You will walk away with a better understanding of the actions you need to take to prevent accidents and increase your productivity. My name is Gisela Clark. I'm the social media specialist at Columbus McKinnon Corporation and will be your host for today's webinar. Presenting today will be Peter Cook, our training manager. He specializes in rigging and load securement. Peter has dedicated 15 years to Columbus McKinnon as an engineer designing lifts, slings, and forgings. He's traveled throughout the world teaching proper rigging techniques, rigging gear inspection, and hoisting crane inspection and maintenance. As I said earlier, we are recording this session today, and the recording link will be added to our YouTube channel. Everyone in attendance will receive a link to the recording afterwards. Everyone is in listen-only mode, so we encourage you to ask questions in the Q&A pane on the right side of your page. We'll take 5 minutes at the end to answer any questions. Thank you for your attention, everyone. And now I'll turn the meeting over to Peter so that we can begin.
Thank you, Gisela. And we'll get started here, and thanks for the introduction. Just so everyone knows, what we're covering today is by no means intended for a substitute for any government standards or safety regulations. We're just kind of giving an overview to kind of familiarize what you should know, and please seek out those proper government standards and safety regulations, and nor is this legal advice from Columbus McKinnon. It's just more of an awareness type of training. So we'll get started. So what are some of the regulations that are out there that we need to apply to or adhere to for material handling? Of course, OSHA being the number one, and OSHA is the law. Then we have ANSI, American National Standards, which they sanction ASME, American Society of Mechanical Engineers. And those are pretty much the safety regulations that we adhere to, or standards. So a lot of times we'll get what's the difference between ASME and OSHA and their application as law as applies to overhead hoisting and cranes. Well, of course, OSHA is the law. OSHA is the government, or ASME is not. ASME is basically leading authorities that make up committees, and we get sanctioned by ANSI. So we update regularly, but they are not law. They're a volunteer standard, but can be just as binding in the court of law. So what we say to people is use which one is more stringent. Obviously, you want to follow OSHA, but if ASME has better language, which oftentimes does because it's updated regularly, and OSHA is not, it's more practical. But practical to go with ASME, but you do want to be sure you stick with OSHA. A lot of times there are some regulations where OSHA doesn't have anything written for. So what do? They issue what's called a general duty clause, and that general duty clause is if it's imminent danger and it's a recognized hazard, that they'll issue a citation for that, even if they don't have something written. So if an employee becomes in danger, they're going to do that. So there are certain things that obviously maybe if a warning tag were to fall off something, it may not be under the general duty clause, but they could write you up on it. But they might not. It might not be as serious, to the employee. But it's got to be something very serious that an accident is waiting to happen when they use that general duty clause. OSHA replaces responsibility on the owners or the end user of the crane, and it's your responsibility to be sure your equipment is upkept, and your people operating your equipment understand the functionality of that equipment. So they need to be aware of all the OSHA standards, and if OSHA doesn't cover it, the safety standards that are out there, or what the manufacturer says about that equipment. So it comes down to training. So if we get started here, here's a simple lift. You can find this type of lift in any type of fabrication facility. It's quite common. So do you know what standards or regulations cover the equipment to your right to use and inspection? And Gisela's going to put up a poll question here, but take a look at that picture and look at the yellow crane there to the left. And what safety standard or regulation applies to that, what's called a jib crane? So if Gisela, you can put up your polling slide and people can answer that question.
Sure. So as he says, what safety standard or regulation covers inspection and use of the crane you just saw to the right? Is it OSHA 1910-179, OSHA 1910-184, ASME B3010, or ASME B3011? If you could go ahead and vote, that would be great. We love the feedback. If you have an iPad, you won't be able to vote, but you can type your answer in the Q&A pane if you like. Oh, Peter, this is really interesting. We have
all over?
Yeah, it's all over. Let's see. Give it another second. We are almost at equal votes for every answer. Looks like the first one is becoming 33% on the first and 22% on the other three. Okay, I'll go ahead and close it, and then you can continue, Peter.
So I'll give the answer for that one. The answer, that jib crane is a monorail type crane system, and there is no OSHA regulation written for it, so we're going to have to follow this ASME standard called B30.11. Okay, so again, we're just bringing these to your attention. We'll get into a little bit more what that means, and let's do one more, Gisela. So again, looking at that picture, and if you notice down where they're lifting that plate, there's a chain sling that's connected to some plate hooks, and if I were to look for the regulation that pertains to those chain slings, what safety standard regulation would pertain to those chain slings that they're down near that plate steel? So Gisela, if you can put up another polling slide.
Sure. Here's the next one, same question. And I just got a little note from an attendee from Canada who's not familiar with our regulation, so no worries. Just do your best, and yeah, but I do appreciate your comment. Thank you for writing that. So again, what safety standard or regulation covers inspection and use of this crane? So if you can go ahead and vote. It looks like, Peter, it's broken down between the top three. 22% for 179, 56% for 184, and 22% for B30.10. So what is the answer there, Peter?
It's OSHA 1910.184 out of those choices. So the OSHA regulation would be the one that we would look at for inspection and use of those chain slings. So there is a government law for that. And we also have ASME B30.9, which is the voluntary standard for that. So here you go. Here's everything that pertains to that simple lift. So we started off with B30.11. When it comes to inspection of the underhung hoist, it will reference us to another regulation called B30.16. The hook for that hoist, there is some inspection criteria in 16, but it will also then refer you to B30.10 for the hook. Again, the chain slings, ASME B39 slings, are OSHA 1910-184. And then we have a below-the-hook lifting device, B3020. Again, hooks. Doesn't matter what the hooks are hooks, and they go referred to B30.10. Then we get down to some rigging hardware, such as a master link. It's hard to tell, but it's pointing to a master link. In this case, the master link is part of a sling, but if it was used independently, it could be part of 26 rigging hardware. Again, the sling standard there again, and then we get down to there's a shackle. It's hard to see in the picture, but it's called a shackle, which we're attaching to those clamps. That's B30.26. And then we got a plate clamp, B30.11. It's called a below-the-hook lifting device, or below-the-hook lifter. So that's quite a volume there, and you can see in that particular slide, there isn't much OSHA regulations that apply, but quite a volume of safety standards. There is a safety standard for every piece of rigging hardware used for overhead lifting or equipment, and there's a committee that sits behind it and writes the safety regulations for it. So quite interesting. So if you're not up to speed and all that, again, that's you got to be sure that you're compliant with all these to have a safe operation. What pertains to, what does the operator need to know? What do the maintenance crews need to know? What do the inspectors need to know? And that's all written in these standards. So what does OSHA cover? So we mentioned the sling standard, 1910-184, but what about cranes? Well, the scope for OSHA is OSHA 1910.179 or ASME B30.2, and with that standard, the scope of those standards, what it will say is it only covers double girder, top running cranes with a top running hoist. So you can see there the hoist is top running on those double girders, and that crane is also running on top of the rails where it's near against the wall. That's what OSHA covers. If I took that same crane system and underhung the hoist, it wouldn't fall under OSHA. Even though all the components are generally the same, it wouldn't fall under OSHA anymore. We'd have to refer to the B3011 standard. So just a slight modification to it. OSHA scope doesn't cover it because they spell it. When it's the law has to be spelled out, and it's top running double girder, top running hoist. So kind of interesting, and it is different. Some of the things are different on how you inspect or how you use and things of that nature than a B3011 standard. And inside the standards talk about people who operate or people who inspect and use the equipment need to be a qualified person or a designated person or a competent person. It all depends what they're talking about, and those are the definitions. So a qualified person is one who possession of a recognized degree or certificate of professional standing or who by extensive knowledge, training, and experience has successfully demonstrated the ability to solve or resolve problems relating to the subject matter at work. Some of the inspection criteria says person selected or assigned by employer or employer's representative is being qualified to perform those duties. So it would be that designated person. And a competent person, one who is capable of identifying existing predictable hazards in surrounding or working conditions which are unsanitary, hazardous, or dangerous to employees, and who has authorization to take prompt corrective measures to eliminate them. So in reality, a lot of times maybe one person should be wearing all three of those hats, and what those definitions mean when operating overhead equipment or rigging equipment. So how does someone become qualified, designated, or competent? Well, it comes down to training, okay? Pick your desired level of competency, but get trained. You want to get trained up on that equipment and make sure you understand when is it good, is it safe to use, or is it out of inspection, or am I qualified to use? Do I understand how this equipment works? Because I want to be able to be sure I don't do anything wrong. So it comes down to proper training. So let's break it up a little bit. So let's get into sling inspections, and we're going to talk about sling inspections and crane and hoist inspections and riggers and operators and things of that nature.
Excuse me,
like
Peter?
we said,
Peter,
yeah.
Can I just interrupt for 1 second? There was a very good question that came in that I thought would be best addressed now. Does the NRC, Nuclear Regulatory Commission, use ASME standards also, or are there separate standards to consider for the nuclear industry?
I'm sure they have the ASME standard as their basis. Now, to be honest with you, I'm not up to speed to the nuclear standard, so I am sure there are more stringent guidelines in there. So, but guaranteed that ASME standard is their basis. So I would assume even in some different nuclear plants that there would be some more stringent criteria written by them for that particular plant. Unfortunately, I'm not real up to date on that type of stuff. But again, if nuclear is your industry, then you would certainly want to seek out beyond that. And I can tell you now, there are people sitting on, I sit on the ASME B9 committee. We do have people from the nuclear industry sitting on our committees helping us write the safety standards.
Okay, thank you, Peter.
You're welcome. So, sling inspections. And here it goes. There's in the government law, it says a thorough periodic inspection of slings shall be performed. There is that competent person designated by the employer. So what does that mean? This is a trained, competent rigging gear inspector. Have they been trained? Do they know what to look for in a wire rope, chain sling, synthetic sling, how to inspect it, how to be sure it's compliant, and when to take it out of service? And then you have, when do these inspections need to be done? Each day before being used, the sling and all fastening and attachments shall be inspected for damage or defects by a competent person designated by the employer. Well, that's your rigger, the guy that's using it. If it's every day, right, that's the person. You're not going to wait for the rigging gear inspector, maybe a third-party inspector, to come around every day, because that's not going to happen. They're going to, at a minimum, come around once a year, or more than that, depending on the type of service. But a rigger should really understand, hey, is this? I'm going to select this chain sling. Is it safe to use? And can I identify some of the issues that could happen with chain sling and make sure I don't use it? So that comes down to rigging qualifications.
Hey, Peter, really quick, what ASME standard can be referenced for sling inspection and use?
Yes, yeah, that would be ASME B30.9. So we have OSHA's law, and ASME B30.9 is the sling inspection that ASME covers, and that's updated every 3 years, so it's more up to date than the OSHA standard.
Okay.
And a new version of that is coming out this year.
Okay, great, thanks.
Okay, so let's talk about riggers and operators, top running crane operators. And so we said that was top running crane operators fall under 1910.179. In section B8, it said designated personnel, only designated personnel shall be permitted to operate a crane covered in this section. That's a trained competent crane operator. So he has to be trained properly. 1910, same regulation, and there's the N3IX. When 2 or more cranes are used to lift a load, one qualified person shall be in charge of the operation. He shall analyze the operation and instruct all personnel involved in the proper positioning, rigging of the load, and movement to be made. That's a trained qualified rigger and crane operator. More of an advanced rigger too, because they're going to do some calculations, make sure, look at tensions, things of that nature. So that's someone that's going to have to supervise or write a lift plan to be sure that's being done right. And then we have an OSHA for construction, qualified rigger requirements, and this is 29 CFR 1926-1401. Employers must use qualified rigger during hoisting activities for assembly and disassembly work. Additionally, qualified riggers are required whenever workers are within the fall zone and hooking, unhooking, or guiding a load, or doing the initial connection of a load to a component or structure. So it's really kind of new within the construction industry, and so they all have to have documented proper training and show that they're qualified to perform the rigging that they're doing. They have to. So you might have a guy who's trained to lift, let's say, structural I-beams, knows how to do it, knows how to use the proper equipment, things of that nature. And then maybe somebody asks him, hey, can you flip a pressure vessel over here over on its side? And if he's never done that, then he's not qualified. He's qualified to lift the I-beams, but may have never had training to do the other. So again, that's within, and that's new for OSHA.
Peter, on a question regarding that, if I'm not in construction, does OSHA qualified rigger requirement even apply to me?
Very good question, and the simple answer is no, because again, it's a construction standard. Now you could be indoors if you're doing any construction type work. Say you're installing new machinery, you might be installing a new crane. That's considered construction. So yes, then you would fall under that. So if it's a construction-like activity, yes, you would be. But for general industry, moving product around, things of that nature, no, this would not apply. But within the ASME standards, they all say you shall be properly trained in that equipment, and of course the manufacturers all say that as well. In reality, rigging is rigging. You're connecting to a hook and a crane, whether the crane is a big mobile crane or a boom truck or an overhead crane. You're connecting some type of rigging to a crane, and so you need to get trained up on it. And just the government hasn't really written anything for general industry. More they steered towards construction because there was a rash of accidents in the construction industry.
Okay, thanks, Peter.
You're welcome. So what the ASME documents require crane operators, riggers to have training to promote proficient performance. So what is personal competence? That's going to be a big word over here, competency, personal competence. Are you properly educated for the job task? Are you properly trained? Do you have the experience? Are you physically capable of performing that job? And be competent, capable as determined by the employer or employer's representative. So the big word is competency now, and being capable of performing that job task. The big physically capable of performing the job. You might be physically in strength 300 days out of the year, but there may be a day you're sick, or maybe a day that you have some personal issues, and that can play a role. You need to take a step back sometimes and say, hey, I need a different job today. I'm just not. So you got to self-evaluate too, because a lot of accidents happen because someone's distracted, having a bad day personally and at work, and things and accidents can happen, and that's a tough one to evaluate, but something that the industry is aware of, that why accidents do happen sometimes. Okay, so let's look at, we talked about some types of inspections, and let's look at for slings, and we looked at operations. Now look at hoist inspections. So here we have another polling question, and we'll take a look at that structure, that crane structure. And Lisa, if you can put up the next polling question.
Okay. All right, I'll pull it up. I just want to make sure they get a good look at it. So take another quick.
Yeah, you can take a minute or so.
Okay, and I'll go ahead and ask the question. So the question is, what safety standard or regulation covers inspection and use of the chain slings rigged to the plate you just saw? OSHA 1910-179, OSHA 1910-184, ASME B3010, or ASME B3011?
Well, that was this is the crane structure here that we're talking about, not the plate.
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. Yes, so those that are applied to the crane structure. So, wow, we have unanimously OSHA 1910, 184. That's the vote right now. We got a few more coming in.
Well, that was the old question, the plate question. Did you put the new one up, the crane structure here?
Wait a minute, I thought I did. Hang on a second. You know what, then I must have. Hold on a second. Just 1 minute. You know what, I didn't. I have the wrong one. I apologize. I can't find it. So anyway, why don't you go ahead and share the answer?
Yeah, so that one there, this is, we said OSHA covers top running, so we look at the what's called the end trucks there. They're top running. Well, that could be OSHA. But what do we see here? We have a single girder. So OSHA, we said it's double girder top running, so single girder top running and an underhung hoist. So in this case, it would be B30.11.
Okay. Sorry about that, Peter.
That's okay. It's a monorail type crane system. So again, why I'm throwing that out there is because you got to recognize your equipment and the regulations and safety standards spell it out. So how often do we need to inspect these types of equipment? So generally we have two general classes. We have frequent inspection and periodic inspection. Frequent inspections are your non-recorded inspections. We recommend doing them daily. Just an operator does pre-operational checks, but they're going to be performed daily to monthly and prior to use. No records need to be kept, but here's more where your operators need to be trained in, hey, am I operating a safe piece of equipment? And they should be doing frequent. Sometimes the maintenance crews internally in the plant will take care of this for them as well and look things over. But one thing, the OSHA regulation, if we go to the 1910-179 spec for top running cranes, they require the hooks, wire rope, or chain inspections to be done monthly with certification records. So if you have a double girder, top running crane, top running hoist, you have to have documented inspections of the hook, wire rope, and chain. And basically you just have to sign off that they passed inspection. And what is called the certification record is it's basically just your signature and an identifier of the crane that you perform the inspection on. And it's nothing more than that and dated. So everybody gets a little bit worried about that certification on there, but all it means is that, yes, by signing it, you're saying you inspected it. So that would be the only frequent inspection that needs to be documentation. That would be 1910-179. But periodic inspections on all equipment need to be performed every 3 months to annually, depending on the severity of service, and those are documented inspections, and they're going to be very detailed. You're going to go, if it's a chain hoist and a crane, you're going to go link by link and the hook and all the way up to the top, and you're going to get on a scissor lift and look at everything and document it. You're going to dot the I's, cross the T's, and you're going to look for any types of deformities or things that cause you concern. And again, it's 3 types of service: normal, heavy, and severe, and depending on how often you do it. Normal service is defined. Randomly distributed loads within the work limit, or uniform loads of less than 65% of the rated load, not more than 15% of the time. So that is considered normal service, where you would only need once a year inspection of your hoist and crane systems. It gets into heavy service, so if it exceeds that normal service definition, that's called heavy service. So you would need twice a year of a documented inspection. And you can see, the pictures there show outdoor use, because sometimes, outdoor use, they're a little bit, you might want to step up your inspections a little bit because it is exposed to the elements. And then severe service is any abnormal operating conditions. And what are abnormal operating conditions? Well, not everyone's working near oceanic environment, so you got salt spray, things of that nature. So, that's pretty severe and a very harsh environment. And then you see the steel industry here, where the crane is exposed to some heat, and so it's abnormal. That's that's typically not your normal use. So any abnormal operating conditions, you're going to have that monthly to quarterly inspections, so you need to step it up a little bit more. And so you have to look at your operations and determine where you fall in and what category you fall in, and make sure you have those specifications up to snuff. So hoist inspections. Hoist not in regular service. So what if you have a hoist? Hey, we don't use this hoist. It's infrequently. It's been idle for a period of one month or more, but less than a year. I would just need to perform frequent inspections on that. So basically, before operating that unit, that operator should be doing frequent inspection. And again, we train people to do that at the start of any crane that you're going to operate or hoist. And then a hoist that is used infrequently, which has been idle for a period of 1 year or more. So let's say you have a crane or a hoist and you used it once for maintenance type reasons, and you did a periodic inspection, and then a year has passed and you haven't used that crane at all or that hoist at all over a course of a year, you haven't used it at all, you would still have to do your annual periodic inspection on that at least once a year. It still falls under the category. So you can't just say, oh, it's not used, we don't have to inspect it. You still do. Okay, so that just, before, so what is the benefits of getting trained? Well, obviously, it's going to keep us in compliance. It's going to keep have less injuries to our employees. It's going to increase overall safety and health. Better health equates to better morale, increased productivity, right? Because if we have down equipment, that's not a good thing. If we have an injury, again, even worse. So fewer accidents, less medical expenses. Training is low cost compared to a lost time accident. We have fewer fines, safer equipment, better equipment reliability and service life, and again, increased productivity. So let's just take a quick case study here. Drac Power Station. This happened on March 22nd, 2010. And a crane operator using a 21-ton crane fractured his foot, so a minor injury, when a 30-pound counterweight falls off a crane. Now, that could have been a death easily, right? A 30-pound weight falls off a crane, so a near miss. They found out after doing a study of what happened here, they found out the crane missed 2 periodic inspections. So the guy almost died because something was inspected. So that loose counterweight would have been found, because these cranes shake, they're vibrating, they're getting a lot of work out there. So we probably would have found that in a periodic inspection. So then they say, uh-oh, let's look at all our cranes in our facility. So now this facility is not even running anymore, right? We're going to take all the cranes out of service. 3 of those remaining 6 were out of inspection, and numerous defects were found by independent inspectors. The company was fined $21,000, $145, and paid investigation costs of $5,000, with a total cost of $26,145. That was just in fines. Now, we don't even take into account the injury that happened.
Yep.
Okay. So an injury can add another $27,000. So this minor foot injury is going to add another $27,000 to that $26,000. And what about the lost production there? So we're well within the $100,000 range from not doing simple periodic inspections. A huge cost to that company. And
That's
so
a great illustration.
Is it good to get trained? Yeah, it absolutely is. To we get up to speed on what needs to be looked at, and get your stuff up to snuff, and your operators too. The more eyes you have on equipment, the more people that are in the know, the safer it's going to be, the better it's going to operate. So training, what is professional training? So get professionally trained. They have extensive knowledge of industry regulations and standards. They're recognized experts in their field. They oftentimes are part of the ASME committees or advise OSHA on some of their regulations. They have technical expertise in product and service, member of industrial trade organizations, write articles and blog articles. You'll often, good training company, you can probably Google some names and you'll see them pop up in blogs and things they're writing. And they're not involved with sales and promotion. They're involved with strictly training. So, and why do I say that? Because a lot of times you'll get safety type training from a salesman, which isn't bad. It's okay. But their main objective is to sell your product, so it's not really geared towards a full-blown professional training. So be aware of that. You can, on-site training. We offer on-site training. Get trained on your own equipment. We'll bring additional products, material as needed. Course can be altered to suit your applications. And so that's a really good thing. So you can have someone, we can have our trainer come in and then even walk through your organization and point some things out, and this is what you need to know, and point you in the right direction. So the training offering that Columbus McKinnon offers are, we certify people in hoist repair, wire rope hoist repair, utility hoists, overhead crane frequent and monthly inspections, overhead crane inspection certification for your periodic inspectors, crane operators type training, specialized what's called static stepless controls and understanding that specialized crane controls, and rigging training. These basic qualified rigger training, advanced rigging, rigging gear inspector, load securement type training, and we can offer train-to-trainer in the rigging and load securement crane operator types of training. So it's very important that you understand the regulations. If it seems like a monumental task, that's what the professional trainers are there for. That's their life. They read those standards, they know those standards, they teach them, and they operate those equipment on a regular basis, so they can definitely help your organization out and make sure that you're compliant and safe.
Okay, at this point, if anyone has any final questions they'd like to ask, go ahead and type them in the Q&A screen and let us know what they could be, and we'd love to address them. We have a little more time. We always try to make sure you're in and out within 45 minutes, and we're a little ahead of schedule today. So please go ahead and type those questions in. And in the meantime, I have one more polling slide, and this is just to gauge your interest in any training, whether you feel you have a need with us or another company. Are you interested in taking any crane inspection, operation, or rigging training? Yes, within 1 to 3 months. Yes, within 3 to 6 months. Yes, within 6 to 12 months, or you're just not interested. And please be honest with us. We're just trying to get a little feedback. That's it. So thank you for that. And let's just see. We have a few questions.
The person that asked the person that asked that nuclear question, if we can capture their email address and things of that nature, I will. I have a lot of people I know in the industry, and we will point that person in the right direction, because I don't feel I answered their question adequately.
Sure. No, that's fine. I can pass that information on to you, Peter, after the call. A question came in. Are copies of OSHA and ASME typically available at no cost, or do you need to purchase them?
OSHA is available free of charge on the OSHA website, so you can type in those safety standards, or excuse me, those OSHA's are called regulations. You can find those free of charge on the OSHA site. ASME standards are, you have to pay for them, and they're roughly around $65 per publication. You have to pay for each copy that you want. What's nice about ASME, you can download them once you pay for them and have them in PDF format, but you do have to pay for the ASME guidelines.
And how often did you say they're updated, Peter?
Every 3 years for ASME.
Okay, every 3
years.
So,
for instance, the B39, which I sit on, we're going to have a new print coming out this year. It's going to be drastically changed, so everything's going to change on it. So we constantly are updating those regulations, or excuse me, that's a safety. ASME is a safety standard, but we're always updating.
And you have to pay for updates once you buy the main version, or no?
Yes.
Okay, so you pay for the main version, then you pay for all the updates, just like anything else. Okay, good.
Right.
And you want to just switch to the last slide for me, Peter? While we're just seeing if there are any more questions, I can speak to these maybe. Oh, yeah. Actually, why don't you go ahead and talk about what's coming up?
Yeah, we have a few courses coming up at our regional training centers. We have the overhead crane and hoist inspection certification, where that covers the periodic inspection of the overall crane system. And in that same week, maybe you'd rather get into repair of a hoist and not just stick with the inspection. So repair, we have a repair class where we tear into over 24 different style of hoists, right down to nuts and bolts, and reassemble them and tell you what to look for and how to fix a hoist and inspect it. And then we also offer operator training, and we have our next one in near Niagara Falls, Tonawanda, New York, near Niagara Falls, our Niagara Training Center, which is really cool to come to. We have all the types of cranes and rigging, everything that CM manufactures, and then some, and May 19th to the 22nd, and that's a very good hands-on crane operator and rigger workshop. And you can see the site there to register, or you can contact myself or even Gisela to learn more information on that.
Just wanted to find out, someone had asked the question, is there a repair course soon coming up in Charlotte?
Yep, that is next week, actually. It is March 4th, 5th, and 6th, and it's out of our Duff Norton plant.
Yeah, that's where I'm sitting right now. So, yes, exactly.
Yep.
if you come to that class, we'd get to meet. No, it's actually very nice. Now that we have this facility in Charlotte, it's great because we have, I've been working out of this office for almost 15 years, and we have just great, it's a great facility as well that's been added. So, but anyway, okay, so from that, I just wanted to point a couple of things out for those of you not aware how to connect with us. On the social side, we have a blog. We have over 125 articles written about safety, material handling, some about our products, some application stories, really a whole gamut, customer questions and answers, all different types of things. You can find it at blog.cmworks.com. We have 2 Twitter handles. We have our CMCO Live account, which is our basic general industry, or we have our CM Entertainment account. You can find us on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, and Google+. We'd love to connect with you there. We love having conversations. If you have any questions or stories or anything you'd like to share, I'm actively involved with that, and I'd love to see it, and I'd love to share it. So
Yeah, and on YouTube, Gisela, some of our past, we've been doing this over a year, these webinars. We have some great past webinars that were recorded that they can go back and watch, and a lot of safety, 10-minute safety movies that people can use for lunch and learns and things of that nature, and to start their training off right.
yeah, like Peter said, we have all of these safety webinars we record and make available to you on our YouTube channel. I think this is our, let's see, 11th one that we've done in the last, I think 14 months.
Yeah.
And a lot of other
12,000 people have viewed it.
Yeah, we've had a lot of views, so it's pretty exciting. But again, we just want to be a resource to you. We want to help you be safer on your jobs and within your companies. And we hope with this training we're, making that, equipping you to make good decisions and seek help if you need it for more information. So thank you very much. If you have any comments to share about today's webinar, what you liked, what you didn't like, or what you'd like to see in the future, please type it in our Q&A pane, give us the feedback, or you can shoot me an email. I'll be sending everybody a link to the recording on our YouTube channel, as well as touching on the webinar we have for next month. So thank you, everyone, for coming. We really appreciate your participation. And as I said, you feel free to reach out to Peter or myself after the meeting should you have any further questions about anything that was discussed. So best wishes. Thank you.